Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. We may have a snafu this morning that we were really looking forward to hearing from Mia this morning. And I think she may think that it's an hour later. I think the daylight savings time might be a problem. So in that case, I would love to have you play with me this morning with a dream that I had. Do you feel up to that? Playing with a dream?
Sure.
It feels also like a good topic or a good dream around Easter and spring and renewal and that whole idea of things dying and being resurrected and there being a sense of purpose and meaning in all of that. It's not a kind of random thing of death and rebirth and our participation in that great dance of life, mystery of life. So let's take a couple of breaths. Would somebody do an attunement for us? Who would do that?
Let's sit comfortably and see if you're sitting comfortably in your chair and feeling the support from the chair, from the ground, and from the whole room around you. And feeling into your breathing, sensing in your body with your breathing. Sensing your body for what's intense or being relaxed or being numb where you don't have a feeling. Sensing into those all. When you get in touch with them, say hello and greet to them. And connect to yourself with the way you want for a moment. When you're ready, let's come back to the classroom for Lynn's sharing.
Thank you, Vivian. So those of you who have just come on, we were looking forward to Mia speaking to us, but we think that she got the daylight savings time mixed up. So the people who were here at the moment when I volunteered said that you would play with me this morning with a dream. And somehow the dream ties in for me with Easter and renewal and new life. So the dream I had many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and I think of it very often. It was very simple. In the dream, I was with some people, and a mentor or the leader of this group said to me to give me feedback you have something very important to say, but you haven't said it yet. So I woke up from that dream and I thought, what is it? You know, what is the important thing that I have to say? And why haven't I said it? I'm doing all this teaching. Even 20 years ago, I was doing all of this teaching. Then recently, I had another dream. And in this dream, there was a small book. And it was very, very difficult to read and understand. And I read it again, or lines from it, and I recognized what this author was trying to say, and where it came from in that author. And I said, I get it. I get it. Wow. I want to teach this, I said. But then when I woke up, I didn't remember what the book said. And I didn't remember anything else about it. But it seemed to go in a way with the first dream. So one thing that I thought about is that what we have to say isn't only in words. It isn't what you're saying to people, but our lives speak in many, many ways. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, God, the great mystery, is the Word. And all of us are particular, very unique words. Our lives are a word. And that all of these words that we are needed. Each one of us has a unique life and ancestry and history, and all of that life gathers in each one of us. So when we look at the screen and we see each person, it's not only the person we see, but the generations, the history, the childhood, the relatives, the life situation, and the zeitgeist, which I'm fascinated with. What is this zeitgeist that we're living in? We can sort of blame things on them or on the system or on a person, but there's this great big us that's the zeitgeist. And when we look at each other, we're looking at such individual people. And we're looking at this moment in history, this moment in almost 3 years of Help the Helpers, and our speaker didn't come, and we're gathered here together to see what we have to say, what we have to say to each other. So somehow all of that was in the second dream about the book, and about the importance of getting it, each one of us. So I'm wondering if this were your dream, you have something very important to say, but you haven't quite said it yet. I'm going to ask you in a minute to focus in on what is it that your life is meant to say that you maybe not consciously, but that the whole large you that goes way back and goes way into the future and is connected to everybody else has something to say that maybe in that way has never been said before. It's your particular word, your particular configuration that is needed in the world. So, Christine, did you find that poem? I think Christine is still looking for it. We may
Oh, I
need.
have it. I sent it to you. Do you want me to put it in the chat now?
Why don't we have somebody read it? Yes, put it in the chat. Who would like to read a poem that reminds me of this question and this dream? Should we have
I can
Dorothy read it? Dorothy, you may have even read this poem before because it's one of my favorites. It's called The Rain, and it's by Levertov. And let's, as Dorothy reads this poem, let's settle in our seats and breathe and use the poem as a kind of focusing on what it is that we have to say. I just want to say that that in the when I had that dream, the original one, I thought to myself, but I've been saying loads of things that are important to me. I surely have said it. But then I realized that until we die, and maybe not even then, because our lives in a way go on after we die, we have not said it yet. We're always becoming. It's not just taking a snapshot of us like on the screen. We are different now than we were before we knew Mia wasn't probably going to come this morning, right? We're different each moment. We're always becoming. So it makes sense to me that I haven't said it yet. So I'm not feeling as disappointed as when I had the dream. Okay. Dorothy, you're going to read this poem for us? You're muted.
The Rain by Denise Levertov. Trying to remember old dreams, a voice who came in. And meanwhile, the rain all day, all evening, quiet, steady sound. Before it grew too dark, I watched the blue iris leaning under the rain. The flame of the poppies guttered and went out. A voice, almost recalled. There have been times the gods entered a room, cave, a long enclosure where I was. The fourth wall of it, too distant or too dark to see. The birds are silent. No moss at the lit windows. Only a swaying rosebush pierces the table's reflection. Raindrops gazing from it. There have been hands laid on my shoulders. What has been said to me? How has my life replied? The rain, the rain. Beautiful.
What has been said to me? How has my life replied? How is my life replying? How will my life reply? Let's just have a couple of minutes And maybe if you have a pen and paper or phone, just write what comes to you, and we'll have 3 minutes to do that. Just whatever comes. Okay. Is anyone ready to share? And you don't have to share what you wrote. You can share anything that has come to you, or anything that is on your mind.
I'm happy to share.
Good.
Excuse me, it's 2:45 and I haven't eaten yet, so in the kitchen. So what came from me, I'm so glad this happened this way, Lynn, that you shared that dream, because it was very, very helpful, the whole thing. And what came for me right away is new layers of vulnerability and new
Ah.
layers of beauty.
Oh, wow.
That's what wants to be shared.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. I'm picturing that in the great book of the universe, as a word or a passage, the new layers of vulnerability and new layers of beauty.
Yeah, and the other word that came and it didn't come in is it's not pretty. It's not always pretty.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a wanting
Yes.
to
And
let that be seen.
that's a wonderful distinction, that it can be beauty, but not pretty.
Yeah. But both at the same time.
Yes, yes, yes. Pretty, beauty is not always pretty, and often isn't.
I'd like to share.
Please.
This is Laura. Yeah, so this may not be the name of it, just the phrase that I liked the best.
Right.
Was written down. About not getting it right, but about letting herself loose.
Oh, I love that. Not getting it right, but letting herself loose. Wow. Beautiful. I wonder if when we share these, we could put them in the chat, and then we could see how they all go together. Do you want to say any more about that, Laura? That
Um,
your life is
mm,
saying this.
yeah, I mean, it came in the context of thinking the other day, my core essence isn't really different from when I was 8 or
Mm.
9.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what's different now? Yeah, what I cared about, how I was in the world. Was it really different? You know, it feels like I had the same 2 values of the joy of being helpful, or the
Mm.
love of that,
Mhm.
and the the interest in bringing not something totally out of the box or unconventional, but wanting to do a little turn in the conversation, wanting to bring something a little unique.
Yeah.
Or so I'm told by my mother.
But you remember the feeling as a young child of the joy of being helpful and wanting to be just a little different, a little turn.
And it not really a wanting to be different, but that's how I emanated. Like that's how I showed up.
Yes, yes. That was your essence, like the perfume of your flower, like a little bit different. I think that's true for me also, that I'm not really very different than I was at the age of 8 or 9. And let's imagine that that this snafu, this way that there was a little turn in the universe in the time, that this is part of our whole experience this morning. So coming back to what our lives are meant to say, or are saying, or are becoming. Let's see who else would like to share.
I'll share then. When you said, Lynn, what we have to say to each other,
Mm-hmm.
I really felt this, like my heart felt heavy. I had tears in my eyes coming up and I couldn't figure out why. And I decided it didn't need to be figured out. I could just allow it to be. But then you expanded on it. And that expansion allowed me to connect more. And what came out, this is just a sentence from everything that came out for me. And it was simple sorrow stirred in silence, tears and the solace compassion love heals. It was silence and sorrow for the world, for different things that I see, for the, you know, the pain I often see. I mean, I'm a therapist and I'm a trauma therapist, so I hold space for a lot of sorrow. But sorrow doesn't only extend to my clients. I see it in many spaces that I and you know, I'm in. And so I feel that for me, it's been, how can I hold space for what I feel, hear, see with compassion and love. And I feel that love is so, that to have that, to always go there. Like sometimes when people are suffering, we might go to our own pain, but how can I be also an understanding of pain so I could be in the presence of the sorrow that I see?
Yes. Yes. Holding space is such a beautiful metaphor. Space for the pain and the sorrow and the compassion, and holding that space. Often in trauma, space collapses and there is no space. And then to hold space is a profound word that you're speaking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you, Lynn.
I think Mary was going to say something.
Yes, thank you. As I read the poem again, it said, "What has been said to me," and the word that came was when I told my father I was going to be married. He said, "I only have one piece of advice: be kind to each other." And so that it's been a lifetime of moving towards that goal. Certainly haven't always been kind. But the other piece that came was a long enclosure where I was, the fourth wall of it, too distant or too dark to see. And it took me back to grade 11 when we studied the poem Ulysses. And I looked it up and it was so neat because I'll just read it. "I am a part of all that I have met. Yet all experience is an arch wherethrough gleams that untraveled world whose margin fades forever and ever when I move."
Wow.
It seemed to just, be so, yeah, that long enclosure, the fourth wall, too distant or too dark to see. Yeah,
Margin fades.
yeah.
going way, way out there. And it's connected to that kindness. I love the word kindness because it's humble, it's small to be kind. It's not grand, and yet it's so basic, and the air that we long to breathe.
And this was such a beautiful process for me. Thank you so much. When you asked the question, what has life said to me and how has my life replied? I just went totally down into like a depth inside of me, and it's something I couldn't have accessed on my own. So it was so beautiful. And then I wrote a whole bunch of stuff, how I responded to life. And it's such a simple sentence, but it really says it for me. And it says, because at the very end, I wrote a sentence before you suggested writing a sentence. So my sentence said, life is good, although it doesn't always look that way.
Uh-huh.
And then when you said write a sentence, it said life is full of possibility.
Mm.
And I think that's the response that I've had to life. Life is full of possibility.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes.
So thank you for that. It's very, yeah. And I'm listening to others and I'm getting the same kind of feeling, similar. Yeah.
Yes, it's wonderful. Right. And everything is connected that we're all saying in some kind of way, and yet completely unique.
Mhm.
And that idea of whatever is happening that doesn't look good, it's full of possibilities.
Yeah.
I became aware of my responsibility my responsibility to break family tradition of abuse, that I've become more aware of the history of it within the family recently, and somehow want to make a difference. Somehow, and I think that kindness and what I've come to is just trying to add love any place I can, to try to bring love to the world in some way. And I'm going to be seeing some family members who have dealt recently with abuse, and I want to be able to bring them enough love to help them get through their pain.
If we think about responsibility as the ability to respond, that your life is responding to this history of abuse and saying, no, not on my guard. This is stopping. And this kindness and love will be planted. Those are the seeds. I see that in you, Nancy, that ability to plant kindness and love where abuse was growing.
Really throughout the world.
Mm.
Not just in my family.
Yes, yes, yes. We have just another couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes before we will welcome Mia back. I wish we could hear from every one of us and see what this tapestry is that we are, that that we're making together.
What came for me was in the context of losing a dear friend in my building, so rather suddenly, was saying to someone what you really want to say
Mm,
live, to really just take those moments, just
mm,
like those words, I
mm,
love you, and to stand. I just had an image of me hugging her, and
Mm.
she's very conservative, and but just instead of a quick hug, just really lingering in the hug. And
Mm.
so I imaged that.
Mm. Yeah. Again, that opportunity, taking that opportunity for the lingering hug. Okay, let's take a stretch and staying with that lingering hug. What a wonderful word. And let's welcome Mia back. I'm so glad, Mia, that you're here. And I love to hear from you. Mia combines some of my favorite things like spirituality and existentialism and teaching and focusing. And Mia, you're such a beloved teacher in the focusing world, and we're very privileged to have you with us this morning.
Okay, can I just
We are.
start?
We're all yours.
Okay.
I love your colors, Mia. You go with the painting behind you. Beautiful.
The name of the painting is Flow.
What is it?
Flow. Flow.
Flow. Oh.
So that's what also is something for today. We have to go with the flow,
Yes, yes, right.
even if the situation changes something we didn't expect.
Yes, yes, exactly. And
So,
maybe that flow will be to have a part 1 and a part 2 of your talk will be wonderful. Can you let us see the whole painting? Is it possible to
let
make
me
this?
try if I can do that.
Oh, beautiful. It's kind of spiral. Wow. Very beautiful.
Okay. Okay. Since you had already this time together and the whole process shared together, I feel it needs for myself to adapt to this new situation. And somehow it's something very realistic that a situation can change very rapidly, and we have to change also the way we think we can relate to what's going on. So in some way this is immediately at the core of what I love to share with you from my experience of especially the last months. As you could read in the manuscript I shared with you, it was for me personally a very new situation with many, many challenges. And we all know how much the world has changed in these last months and how we all have to be with all these chaotic and aggressive and problematic things. So crisis is all around, personal lives, but also on a universal scale. And what I learned, especially from Gentlin, and where focusing is for me such an important tool for navigating through this life. That is that for me, focusing allows me to always going into a deeper expanding. It gives me a tool that I can trust, that whatever is happening in my situation, I can find a way to open a space. And instead of getting stuck in the darkness, of getting stuck in the uncertainty, because there is a lot of uncertainty in our life, that we can open up to the possibilities. That's always a very important way. That I feel so grateful that I learned this with focusing, that somehow it gives me a way I can trust in the journey that is life. And even more than that, I can just trust in the journey that is life, but also that it offers me a way to create a new reality when I really understand the deepest meaning of what is living forward, what's life energy about. And that's for me an understanding that deepens and deepens and deepens. And let me say that the way it deepens is also that especially that's for me what I have learned in relation to crisis and in relation to overwhelming loss, that when life as we know it changes, sometimes we risk that our hope dies. And really developing is not just about counting your blessings, but it's about dealing with darkness. And there is where for me comes in this trusting and looking for the living forward energy. This concept of living forward energy, of life energy, I wrote something in the article about that. Most important is that you know your own personal way of addressing, experiencing that universal energy, that source of life that runs through every living being. And whatever you call it, that's not important. whether you call it God or spirit or nature or Buddha or Allah or ki or prana. My personal name is to call it love, because that's for me a way that I can really connect with. In every moment, I can make a choice to connect with this resource. And when we speak about the focusing attitude, for me, that's all, or let's say that's for me a way of being present and being and making connection to this essence. And I point to my heart like this essence that I can sense at the heart level. So that's for me, let's say, what stays as a possibility I always have. The possibility that I can address to whatever crisis I'm in, that I can stay with that in this awareness of loving presence. And I'm amazed about how this presence can manifest. And that's beyond our understanding. And I love to touch also to the, when we say, I understand something. That's a tricky thing, because understanding means that it can stand under a category you know already. That's very often how understanding works for us, that we can stand under a category. It's very different from a process. So there is for me this very important moment of the pause we need very hard, we need very much. We need to pause to let go of our understanding in our old categories. And so that makes a pause so different from stopping the process. Because the pause is this waiting to invite a new understanding. So, and this is something that never stops. I see Lynn, who we are nodding, because for me it's also the older I grow, the more I become so aware of it's ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, and there is so much new that is waiting to discover. So and becoming older, for me, this is the richness that having faced so many difficult things, so many losses, is for me like time and time again an invitation to discover a new layer. So this openness to the endless possibilities, that's also what I call pure awareness. Pure awareness is for me like this openness to the endless possibilities that are not limited by my personal agenda, not limited by my understanding in old categories, or not limited by inauthenticity. I also love the word being authentic. I could also play with that word, like being authentic is for me the same as freshly asking time and time again, how can I be in this difficult situation? And having this awareness that there is no straightforward direction. There are many things I can't control. But the last of human freedom is what in the existential psychology by Frankl is called. The last of human freedom is your attitude towards the situation. And so this question, how can I be with this? How can I be with all that uncertainty? How can I be with all that darkness that I don't have control over? Still, there is always this for me, trust in this life energy, this universal energy, this this fresh new beginning where I can't have already a category for, or what I can't understand already. But I have this criteria, these criteria that are these, what I call pure qualities. Does it give me some joy? Does it give me some peace? Does it give me, does it bring a moment of beauty? These are what I describe in the article. These are these pure qualities that I use as some of criteria of where this universal energy, this source of life, this living forward energy is addressed, even in crisis, even in very dark moments. So this was something I thought this morning when I was wondering, what is there more than that I could share with you than what I have written already in that manuscript that you could read? And maybe my most important message is that it's always a deeper expanding. And yeah, this it's like maturing in your spiritual living. Maturity in your spiritual living has a lot to do with that you don't confuse hope with certainty, but that you trust that there is really growing for you when you learn to deal with darkness. There, you could say the darkness is necessary, that you can discover your light. If there's no darkness, your light can't shine. So these are just metaphors for me that help me to remind me time and time again how I can time and time again open a space and allow something to direct my attention instead of starting from where do I want to put my attention on. So this openness to, yeah, how can I say that? An openness to the endless possibilities. And when I wrote something in my article about the importance of understanding the paradoxical quality of life, that's also about this, that in this deep understanding of the paradoxical quality of life, there are no opposites between dark and light, good and bad, male, female. There are no opposites. They are all part of how life develops. And I really want to emphasize how, for me, time and time again, it is something that I newly discover. Like, of course, sometimes I think, okay, now I know it. And then life brings something, a new crisis or something new that I didn't expect, or something that I was afraid that would happen. And then there we are again. How to find this openness and this living forward energy in it.
Yeah.
So this just a 20 minutes introduction. And I love to relate to what came up in you when you were reading the article, or what resonates in this moment when you hear me giving this introduction.
what you said, Mia, fits so well with the process that we were experimenting with before you came, and it feels like of a piece. And
Yeah,
I'm I'm eager to hear how it landed for people,
mhm.
what it
It's
brought.
it's really an illustration that we can trust in the journey that life is. That even when we think, oh, something went wrong because of the time switch, I wasn't there at the time that I was expected to be there. But you developed something, and as you said, we can trust that this is how life is flowing.
Yes, yes, yes. Just like that picture.
Yes. So please share it, whatever you would love to bring in this interaction.
Don't know if we're being called upon or we should just
Yes.
speak up.
Just speak up.
Okay. So Mia, first of all, I love your writings for some years now, and they've been the clearest for me on spirituality and focusing. So I wanted to thank you for that. I loved what you said about no opposites, which is a real shift. Yeah. I guess there's a question I have of sort of what is your definition, or how do you understand darkness, and what is darkness?
Okay.
And how do we really, we talk about darkness as the not knowing or the uncertainty or the evil or the chaotic, what is it, and how do we really work with it?
Your question addresses something that is also typical for the whole process theory, but also for what I understand more and more about life, that the moment we have a definition for something, there is already a sense of, and there is more than what I can define, or than how I did experience the darkness yesterday is already different from how I experience the darkness today.
Yeah.
So this is this invitation of living freshly in the moment. And yet, of course, as human beings, we also need some stability. We can't just live flying in the air. If we look to the elements in nature, we as human beings, as long as we live in this body, we also need this stable ground under our feet.
Right.
And your question, like a definition for darkness, I really understand this as a human need, that we need some safety, we need some structures, we need some things we can hold on. So we can look for some definitions for darkness or for whatever, some definitions for light, or as long as we are aware that this is just a stability of the moment, and that we address this human need for this safety, this containment, also in a definition of something. But nevertheless, when I hesitate to give a definition,
Yeah.
it's for me like being aware that what we call darkness, in the deepest sense, is also a mystery for us. Like I'm fascinating about what's going on now in this research with this very developed instruments they have, like the Hubble telescope and all these things. And each day they send new images, and they send images about, we discovered a new dark hole that we didn't know about. And then the next day, in the scientific literature, you can find another thing or understanding of these dark holes. We made mistakes. So this is very much how also in science they have this awareness of developing always their understanding, also literally of what they call the dark holes in the universe.
Yeah, black holes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm thankful for your question, because that's such an important issue. That on one hand, of course, we need some definitions to relate to reality.
And
And
maybe
on the other hand, it's so important that we can let go our understanding and
didn't
adapt to
quite
the
even,
newness.
right, I didn't quite know how to ask the question, because I gather that definition is, is so limiting. But it's more like one's own, what is one's experience of darkness, how we hold that, and
Okay.
and are we talking about evil when we're talking about darkness? Are we talking about just that which is unformed yet, or what and maybe there's no answer to
Yeah,
any
but that's
the person.
also a very good question. What is one's experience about darkness? And then again, we can say there are many, many, many manifestations of darkness. And when you speak of ego, you could say darkness are these parts of ourselves that we don't know yet about what's there. The moment we use a word like ego, again, we risk to think that we know what it is. But as I also wrote something in the article about the inner critic as a word, then we are thinking, oh yes, I know that. But again, this is what's your experience then in that moment? And not fix it to its ego, or this is inner critic, or this is evil, or but having this sensitivity of what's there that is still not clear, or where you can sense something and you are posing just to open up to a new understanding of it, or a new development in the darkness. be it what you call your ego, or
evil,
your shadow sides, or whatever you would call it. More important is that you don't let yourself close into a name that you use for it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
That's one of the pitfalls of psychology as well. that they have a lot of names for processes, and especially for difficult processes. They use a lot of diagnosis and they give it a name and they put it into a category.
Yeah.
And then again, they lose touch with the living experience.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth. What you were saying, Mia, reminds me of Jane Genlin's Zigzag, of taking out of the amorphousness, allowing to emerge a name or a something. But then that's not complete. Then you have your name, and then you have to come back in and say, well, what do I mean by that? And then something new will come. So we need to sort of ground things by giving it a name or a handle, but then we can't stay there with that handle because it doesn't open the door anymore. A handle has to open a door.
Yeah. And this is such a wonderful thing that when you give it a name or when you put something into words, you put that into reality also.
Yes, yes.
So that's a way of creating.
Yes.
And saying is a form of creating meaning. So, and that's why I make this difference that understanding is important as long as you can experience it as this is a moment in reality, a moment in this reality. When you put that in these words, or when you name it in that way, that helps you to create meaning and to bring it into reality.
It reminds me of how so many of us are taking pictures all the time with our phone, and you have this snapshot, and that was some kind of reality, a two-dimensional reality in that moment, but it helps us.
Yeah. As long as you are aware that it is just a moment that you take in that picture, that's a fixed reality, while reality is never fixed.
Yes, yes, yes.
Reality is always living further.
Yeah, and Aneki, did you wish to speak, Aneki? Your hand is up.
It's Anesi, Katerina. My name is Anesi, Katerina. Yeah, Mia, I just wanted to say that I'm so honored to have you here. I do use your work at the university in some of my classes, and I teach an existential humanistic course. When you were speaking, there were a lot of things that you were saying that kind of resonated with the flow of the morning, what Lynn engaged us in. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing that this is so like interconnected. And I wrote one sentence that you said to stay with the pain with the awareness of the loving presence, which kind of reflected some of the conversations that we had before you came. So talk about flow.
And you know how I understand that, how Lean gives shape to the first or, and then how I come in the second time, how there is a natural flow in these two parts.
Yes.
This is something I really learned, that when I enter a situation from a pure intention, then I can trust that when I started from this pureness, that how it develops, that I can trust it.
Mm.
And that it brings new things I didn't expect. And that's for me so different when let's suppose that Lean started what she didn't do from an ego agenda, or that she started not with a pure intention, but with something like, oh, what's wrong with this situation? Then I think it would have been very difficult to develop your first or in that living forward way as you did. And it would be for me quite impossible to start in the second half. When I came into an atmosphere that had this how can I say that? This dark energy of ego issues. Or so I really want to address this because this is something I really learned to trust, that I take my responsibility for the pureness of my intention. Very often I'm not in control of many things in the situation. Or there happen a lot of things that was not in my planning. But as long as I relate to the situation from this pure intentions, as Lean did, and as I tried to do when I joined you, then you can experience what you could experience today. That there is a richness in it, there is a wisdom in it, there is a natural flow that brings different things than you expected, but that you learned other things than you were thinking you could learn for the day.
Mia, what you talked about and just now reminded me of one of my favorite people, Brother David Stendelrast, who talks about the difference between hope and hopes. And he says that you hold your hopes that are particular things on your lap, the way a mother holds her children, ready to let them go. And it isn't until all of the hopes have gone that you really experience hope.
Yeah.
Somehow I feel like we're talking about that difference between the particular concrete things of the hopes and this larger flow of life that's hope that we can learn to trust.
Yeah. For me, hope is that I stay open to look for this living forward energy to arise.
Right.
And that means that I can cope with uncertainty. And that also means that I can be with so many things I don't know, I don't understand. And that in all these situations I still stay connected with some very pure, essential quality.
Yes.
And in many situations, it takes a lot of time also, and it takes this pause before we can connect to that pure essence in ourselves again. In many situations, of course, as human beings, we are overwhelmed by pain, by anger, by fear. So there it always takes again this pause for connecting to something different and what seems to be the most dominant element there.
Yes, I think it's time to stop. And this has been such a beautiful experience. And part one, Mia, we're looking forward to part two next week with you.